In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
If you call Usha Vance, the second lady of the United States of America, a you have no place in the future of the conservative movement.
Yeah. Brother, have you checked in with the vice president? He's kind of doing that himself. On the one hand, he's like, how dare you call my wife slurs? And then also the next day he'll be like, my children are white and they're being bullied because of how white they are. Hey guys, have you seen how white my kids are from my Indian wife, Usher? It's pretty funny to watch unfold. Look. I posted, I said, you ain't slick, buddy. Vance says House Democrats denying his children jobs based on their skin color is a million times worse than Fuentes calling them, whatever this term, I'm not even gonna say it. It pisses me off that Fuentes calls my kids the word. And I appreciate that Ro Khanna would never do that. You know what also pisses me off a million times more? That Ro Khanna, AOC, and Chris Murphy would deny them jobs and opportunities because they have the wrong skin color. Chatters cannot even comprehend what JD Vance is trying to say here. Chatters, he's saying his kids are white and that AOC, Ro Khanna, and Chris Murphy would deny them job opportunities because his children are white. That's why you're confused. Because of course his children are not white. They're half Indian. Like, that's not how white supremacy works. If you understand how white supremacy works, you know that that's not the case, right? But he thinks he's slick enough to just be like, yeah, my children who are white are being discriminated against for being white, my white children. He's trying to say that there is anti-white racism happening in the Democratic Party and that his children are going to be impacted by the anti-white racism. It's a made-up grievance. It's not real. It's not a real thing that's taking place. But it's doubly funny because the people who actually believe this made-up grievance don't think his children are white. Do you not understand what's going on here? Yeah, he had more quotes too, I know. Vice President JD giving a very interesting newsy interview to Sohrab Amari on Nick Fuentes. Let me be clear. Anyone who attacks my wife, whether her name is Jen Psaki or Nick Fuentes, can eat. That's my official policy as Vice President of the United States on anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism and all forms of ethnic hatred have no place in the conservative movement. What are you saying? What is the conservative movement that you are talking about? There has never been in the United States of American history, okay, in the 250 years, there has never been a moment where ethnic hatred has not been a profoundly important galvanizing principle of the conservative movement, okay? Conservatives have always organized around ethnic hatred. You did it, and you still are doing it, ironically enough, but you did it when you were, before you were the vice president, when you were on the ticket as the vice president, when you were like, oh, Haitians are eating cats and dogs. Okay, maybe I lied. Maybe Haitians aren't eating cats and dogs, but it's important to understand that there's a real issue with Haitians, so it's okay if I lie and say Haitians are eating cats and dogs. The f- you think that was? There's a reason why half of the people that are attacking you, JD, are attacking you because your wife is Indian, because it is a incredibly important part of the conservative movement. There has never been a world where the conservative movement has not revolved around ethnic hatred. What the f- are we talking about? What does Usha, JD Vance's Hindu Indian American wife, think about her husband's pro-white Christian nationalist speech? On Tucker Carlson, Tucker's a friend of mine, he tells me, and I do have disagreements with Tucker Carlson, sure. I have disagreements with most of my friends, especially those who work in politics. The idea that Tucker Carlson, that his views are somehow completely anathema to conservatism, that he has no place in the conservative movement, is frankly absurd, and I don't think anybody actually believes that. On Ro Khanna, AOC, and Chris Murphy, it pisses me off that Fuentes calls my kids bleep, and I appreciate that Ro Khanna would never do that. You know what pisses me off a million times more? That Ro Khanna, AOC, and Chris Murphy would deny them jobs and opportunities because they have the wrong skin color, referring to affirmative action. Oh, I can't believe AOC and Ro Khanna and everybody else would deny my white children job opportunities because they're white. I just want to remind everybody that my children are white, by the way. My white children. Okay, well, that kind of doesn't make sense with the first part of the equation here, when you're saying that all the people that are yelling at me for marrying an Indian woman are wrong. Get my wife's name out of your mouth, you know, stop doing that. But also, my Indian wife has produced white children, and they're going to be discriminated against for being white. These two things don't make sense together, okay? I don't know why you thought with your focus tested message on like in your endless desire to appeal to the dumbest reactionaries, you thought that this would be successful. And he's more upset about some shit he made up in his head that won't even happen in the future than of current events happening right now. That's what's really making me mad. A hypothetical that I made up that doesn't even make any sense. Oh yeah, stop eating my face, screamed Vivek as the leopards ate his face unconcerned. The idea of a heritage American is about as loony as anything the woke left has put up. There is no American who is more American than somebody else.
Of America.
It's crazy talk. We believe in ideals. That's who we are. Yeah, brother, I don't know if you heard the other people that were on that stage before you and came after you, but they absolutely don't believe that you're American. It's so strange that these guys try to hit the woke button. I don't even understand where the confidence comes from. Like, who's he talking to? Did you think that you were at, some Democrat convention or something? What the f are you talking about? Oh, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as heritage Americans. Yet, dog, it's called white supremacy, and you are not a part of the in-group, okay? You are a token. You are simply a token. And the moment that you speak out of turn against white supremacy, as long as you are playing along and you just say, white supremacy doesn't exist, come on now, you're fine, right? But the moment that you speak out of turn, you are going to be disposed of. And the same goes for Ben Shapiro, okay? For the longest time, it was not a matter of contention or debate, at least for like the past 4 decades, whether or not Ashkenazi Jews, especially in the United States of America, are part of the white group, okay? They're in group. In most polite society, they still are. Republicans are currently going through the motions of deciding whether or not Jews are a part of that in group or not. And Ben Shapiro is responding to that in the worst ways possible for his career. Instead of trying to figure out like a reasonable middle ground where you will still continue to allow anti-Semitism to manifest, you've decided to rail against it. But once that tokenization happens for you, once, the Republicans decide, yeah, actually, Jews are not really a part of the in-group at all. They're not white at all, actually. If you turn around and you start railing against that, you're going to get spent.
American identity that's emergent in certain corridors of the online right. And it says that your identity as an American is based on your lineage. That how long you have been in the country, your lineage and your genetics tied to the blood and soil of the country determines how American you are. It is the idea of a heritage American that says the truest form of an American is somebody who is a descendant of the...
I do love this because he does try to do the racism technique where he'll be like, well, that would mean AOC is more of a heritage American than Donald Trump. I wonder why people don't think AOC is more of a heritage American than Donald Trump, in spite of the reality that AOC's family has longer roots on U.S. soil than Trump's. I wonder what it is. Perhaps that exact same attitude is the reason why they don't think you're American, you moron. The whole heritage American concept is just a more pleasant, more palatable way to reassert white supremacist values. So when you're in the process of also describing said white supremacist values and you bring up a brown woman who's been here for longer than the white president as not being really a heritage American, you kind of give the game away without recognizing the game itself.
American Revolution period or before. And I will tell you, this idea of the heritage American, we ought to have this discussion. It's becoming more popular. I think the idea of a heritage American is about as loony as anything the woke left has actually put up.
Yeah, this is the other side of it where they go, oh, you're being like a woke leftist here. They are, and everybody likes it. So you're cooked.
There is no American who is more...
Telling the most racist guy in the room that he's behaving similar to a woke leftist is so funny because the room is naturally going to gravitate towards the most racist guy.
Leads you to believe that somehow Bernie Sanders is more of an American than Senator Bernie Moreno from my home state, an America First patriot, because Bernie Moreno was a naturalized citizen from Colombia. It makes you think that Marco Rubio, our great Secretary of State, is somehow less of an American than Elizabeth Warren because she's a Native American, which we all know, right? Doesn't make any sense. It's loony. It's crazy talk. It makes you believe that somehow I am less of an American than the transgender criminal who assassinated Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, that was also like the primary focus on everybody, where they were like, hey, remember the transgender criminal that killed Charlie Kirk, which, by the way, not even trans. Again, another one of these heritage Americans, okay? Another one of these heritage Americans who happen to be of Mormon background. Perhaps that is the reason why the whole, like, he's actually transgender arguments didn't work at all, you know, but good luck.
We refuse to accept that. The idea that a heritage American is any more American than another American is un-American at its core. And I will fight to the very end for that, because that's what it means to be an American. We believe in ideals. That is who we are.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with this message. I think it'll definitely work. If you showed an ignorant Trump supporter the shooter and Vivek and asked who is American, I think you know how they'd pick. Exactly. That's why it doesn't make sense. That's why this argument does not make sense. White supremacy is a super simple concept to abide by. It's a super simple concept to sign on to. It's just what you see is what you get. It's not a European style racism, you know? It's not as complex. It's not about identifying like small marginal differences. There is still a testament, for the record, to how Jews are still a part of the white in-group, though. And one of the reasons why I say that is because it hasn't changed yet. The dynamic hasn't shifted entirely yet. But one of the telltale markers of someone being still a part of the in-group is how successful a famous criminal from marginalized background is indicative of how the entire group actually is. If a trans person does a crime, all trans people are just like this. We already knew that. We already knew that. Come on now. That's like the type of narrative that runs amok. Jeffrey Epstein's religion and Jewish background is not, with the exception of anti-Semites, of course, used as like a primary vehicle to on every Jewish person, at least in mainstream media, in the same way that, like, when a Muslim person actually engages in a crime, everybody is responsible. Donald Trump literally was saying every Somali person of American immigration status is actually culpable, is actually responsible for the Somali people that were indicted in the welfare scam that took place in Minneapolis, right? Afghan CIA asset shoots National Guardsmen. All Muslims are called in the question. Now, having said that, because we're now in this weird space where the whether Jews are a part of the in-group or not is now being openly debated, specifically on the Republican side, there are people who do that. There are people who point to Jeffrey Epstein and go, well, this is how they are, all this stuff, but it still doesn't have the same level. It still doesn't have the same salience of like whenever like a Muslim person does anything, any crime whatsoever, and then the entirety of the media covers whether or not sincerely all Muslims are like that or not. So it's not there yet. I am noticing that it is heading in that direction, at least on the Republican side, and they are the guys who actually dictate whether or not someone is considered white or not. So we shall see. I think the fact that it's being debated kind of takes Jews out of the in-group, not to the same degree as everyone else in the out-group. No, but like there's varying degrees of being in the out-group, okay? And black is the furthest away in proximity to whiteness, okay? So there's varying degrees within the white supremacist structure. Vance is careful to not criticize any ethnic hatred his boss has displayed. He's sticking to only criticizing the Groypers, who are a fringe movement in America compared to the party that controls the government. Even if Jews are white, anti-Semitism is crucial for white supremacy because of its white adjacency. I don't know what you mean by this. When I say whiteness, I don't mean like the color of your skin, chatter. Like, it has nothing to do with that. Whiteness is just a socio-political construct. That's all it is. So regardless of how white, like, whiteness is a socio-political construct. Here, I'll prove it. Irish people were not categorized as white and a part of the in-group at the time when they were first coming to the United States of America, and therefore, despite their current white status, initially that was called into question, and that was a point of their marginalization. Like, it's just, it's not about like literally being white or having pale skin, I mean, I myself of Muslim background have experienced this as a great example. And I'm saying for Jewish people, when we talk about like their whiteness being called into question, what I'm actually jokingly referring to is that they will also be under, potentially in the future, they might be under additional scrutiny that they have not experienced in like, the last 50 years. And discrimination. Not there yet, but Republicans are trying to figure out the next steps on how to get there.
In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore. The only thing that has truly served as an anchor of the United States of America is that we have been, and by the grace of God, we always will be, a Christian nation. Christianity is America's creed.
Very much leaning into that message.
Yeah, and if you look at this speech, you know, we talked about how he's kind of trying to be Switzerland when it comes to this internal dispute in the Republican Party, and kind of, I would argue, trying to have it both ways. But there was a lot in this speech that was speaking directly to the more kind of right-wing portions of the party. You know, he was talking about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, talking about, you know, calling her basically a fake street girl. He talked about Minneapolis. He called it Mogadishu. They were kind of like these little dog whistles that were meant to speak to that.
Yeah, these little dog whistles, yeah. I don't think it's little dog whistles at that point. Like, a dog whistle is supposed to be like hard to decipher, right? There has to be some subtlety. This is about as subtle as a heart attack. Not so certain where the dog whistle is. I mean, I guess like everything but the N-word, if that's what you consider like a dog whistle, then yeah, technically it is a dog whistle, I guess. He didn't say the N-word, right? A bullhorn. Not exactly a dog whistle, but instead a bullhorn, you know? Because you can't really hear a dog whistle. I'll give you an example, okay? For people who are still confused about what a dog whistle is, which is surprising to me. I don't know how people in this audience are. But when people say, like, a new dog whistle that I saw on TikTok as of late that's like popping off everywhere is when they put like a little juice box emoji to imply Jews, or when they say 271K to imply that the 6 million number of Jews that were killed in the Holocaust is fake and it's actually 271,000. So those are dog whistles. A bullhorn, on the other hand, in this situation, like the equivalent of the anti-Semitic statement, on the other hand, would be just simply saying Jews run the country, or simply stating that, I don't know, the Holocaust was fake or something, okay? Like, that would be the dynamic here between what is a dog whistle versus what is just not a dog whistle at all. You're just saying the quiet part out loud. Yeah, saying Jews will not replace us is not a dog whistle. That's just the thing, that you're just saying the thing. And what's really interesting about the conversation that's taken place with, like, even how right-wingers have expanded the permission structure so severely is the fact that when Donald Trump, or when J.D. Vance, who's supposed to be like the reasonable guy, when he says, oh, this is little Mogadishu, I mean Minneapolis.
Omar Fateh was Ilhan Omar's candidate for mayor of Mogadishu. What? I mean Minneapolis. Little Freudian slip there.
Like, that's not a dog whistle, brother. He's just saying a lot of Somali people live there and it's bad because we hate Somali people. How is that even in any way, shape, or form considered a dog whistle? Donald Trump called Somalians, which they always do, and said all Somalians are garbage people. They're parasitic. That's not a dog whistle.
We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing.
He will certainly have to chart his own course here. But what I'm wondering, Vivek Ramaswamy, if he wins as governor of Ohio, does he emerge as a leader, as someone who challenges J.D. Vance? I mean, it's hard to see it perhaps right now, but someone...
What planet are you living on, brother? What is going on here, dude? Yeah, Vivek Ramaswamy is going to win the gubernatorial race in Ohio and then defeat what, J.D. Vance? J.D. Vance is not even going to be the next president, in my opinion. What are we talking about? Like, every part of this is wrong. Every part of this analysis is just so silly.
To hurt white men because they are white men. That is racism.
Oh, God. So stupid. This anti-white racism needs to stop. They all want to be libs. Everyone's a lib at the end of the day, okay? Everyone's a goddamn liberal, dude. I swear to Christ. Oh. The solution to this kind of identitarian is obviously class first politics that still doesn't cast aside, black people, brown people at all. It doesn't write them off. It doesn't write marginalized people off at all. But it's still having a class first approach to politics. But good luck explaining that to people. Nobody wants to do it. Liberals don't want to do it. Republicans obviously are never going to do it. They'll entertain it more than liberals, though, unfortunately, like Tucker Carlson does usually. And that is why I think Tucker Carlson is a more natural progression towards Trumpist politics. And I think he is the spiritual successor of Trumpism in ways that are more meaningful than J.D. Vance. I do not think that J.D. Vance is capable of holding this coalition together because he is such a nerd. Tucker Carlson is a nerd too, but at least he knows how to command the attention of people. He knows how to carry a conversation. He knows how to lead the room. J.D. Vance has spent most of his life brown-nosing liberals and, winning favor with liberals. Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, has been a lifelong conservative that has, I guess, some liberal aesthetics.
Ben Shapiro is like a cancer, and that cancer spreads.
I keep hearing diversity is our strength, but I'm not so sure. The young white men who for a generation were left behind by DEI.
I saw I saw like a random tweet about how like nobody wants to say a real truth about a lot of like rudderless young white men especially, but like a lot of young men in general, about how they just want to be babied because they're babies. But if you ever openly say that, you'll never win an election ever again. And there is some truth to that. Okay, there is definitely truth to that. Annoying that we just have to have these conversations over and over and over again. Is like they just want to be coddled. Okay, that's it. They want to be coddled. And if you were to turn around and be like, shut the up, you just want to be coddled, you little bitch, you'll never win an election, or you'll never win them in the elections ever again. But there is truth to that. It's annoying, but it's also true.